What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are live. It is Sunday afternoon, 3:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are live. I hardly ever go live or even do a video on a Sunday. And I just thought there was some interesting stuff to cover and to talk about. I just wrote this really long article that I posted on cryptocrow.io. If you're interested in my if you're interested in any of my commentary, you can go. It's cryptocrow.io. It's linked in the description below. And it's basically I blame the media on everything that's going on right now. And I wrote this very long article explaining why, not just the media, but politicians of the past for what they've done with the media. And if you're interested in my political take at all, I know some of you guys are on the left, some of you are on the right. That's okay. That's okay. You're not the problem. But but yeah, this is my political take. A sad day in America. I blame the media. And if you're interested in that, just click down below, go to the blog post, and you can read the whole thing. I'm not going to read it here because if you want to read it, if you care about my thoughts or opinions politically, then you can go there. I know that my channel isn't a political channel, and that's really on purpose to a large extent. And I don't like the idea of trying to force my political ideologies onto you. You can have a difference of opinion. I have explicitly not shared my real true political opinions. I've alluded to a lot of things, and a lot of you. I did a poll back a while back where I basically said, I've asked you guys, where do you guys think I am politically? And a lot of you said, down the middle, or a lot of you, the majority of you assumed me to be more of a libertarian. And to an extent, you're right. I am kind of down the middle. I'm down the middle in the sense that I believe both parties are corrupt as hell and we need to change in system. And it doesn't matter whether you're right or left. You're both wrong. We're all wrong. Because I believe that what's at play is much bigger than a political system or a political party, and that both sides of the aisle are used in different ways at different times to achieve ultimately the same agenda, and that's ultimately to strip everyone of their freedoms and the things that we hold dear and that we hold true in efforts to consolidate power for a select few. And politicians are really just paid puppeteers for the most part. With the exception, I believe, of Trump. And I watched this truly disturbed. And I couldn't even put it into words. I spent the entire day yesterday feeling like I did when I watched 9/11 happen live. And I am not exaggerating in any way. The fact that this happened, many of us have jokingly in some ways said, well, if they're not able to beat him through the election, they're not able to, lock him up. They're not able to throw a bunch of cases at him to basically ruin his finances and his career and his means of running against them. If all of this fails, well, there's only one thing left. And in the back of our heads, we're thinking, because I've seen others say things similar. And in the back of my mind, I say things like that, and I think, but they're not going to go that far. They wouldn't go that far. We've come so far since like JFK. We've come so far. And if there's one thing that we can definitely count on is the media to create monsters of people. And that's what basically my entire article is all about. And where it started, from the Smith-Mund Act, repealing the Smith-Mund Act during the Obama administration, and basically opening it up to the media to basically perpetuate propaganda, misinformation, and make it okay for them to do so. And the changes since then, and how the country has been divided through media for the, and not just, like the CNN and the mainstream cable news or any of that, but through social media and all of that, and what they gain from that. And how the pandemic was a perfect example as to how the media is ultimately rewarded for playing their role in whatever the agenda is at the time. And I believe that the media at large is at fault for exactly what happened yesterday. I watched this. I'm like trying to control myself now because I'm looking at these pictures. And I've never, like, I've always looked at Trump as the defiant one. I've always looked at him as someone who, I know a lot of people don't believe it because of their convictions established through what they've read or what they see on a regular basis in mainstream media, ultimately telling them what to think and what to feel, and who anyone opposing those perspectives is. Whether they're conspiracy theorists or, some form of demonizing of anyone that believes outside of that bubble. And what they have ultimately created in society today, this divide, a division like I've never seen in my lifetime. And I see Trump, from the first time I saw Trump talking at the World Economic Forum, ultimately thumbing his nose at the grand agenda of, build back better, you'll own nothing and be happy, and all of these narratives to ultimately, like I've said on Twitter, you can't build something back that hasn't first been destroyed. And we see this playing out all over in different countries. But with the one common denominator in a lot of these countries is a lot of them stem from the World Economic Forum, from Justin Trudeau to, all of these left-wing politicians, they are all ultimately coming out of the World Economic Forum. And I know a lot of you guys don't even know that the World Economic Forum exists. I know a lot of you that watch my channel do, because I've talked about it. Hell, they've even used one of my photos in one of their articles in the past, which freaked me out. A lot of you guys are telling me to watch myself, right? I know that was just a freak accident because they pulled a photo of me holding up a Bitcoin off of it's a website where you can upload photos to be used freely. They didn't know it was me. It wasn't like a jab at me or anything. It was just a picture that somebody that was in charge of content creation for the World Economic Forum found and thought this represents what our article's about. And they used the photo because they could. It was royalty free. I didn't I set up some of those photos exactly for that reason, which is why you've seen me all over the place in articles all over. So there was no real connection there. It wasn't anything that they did intentionally. They weren't trying to send me a message. But ultimately, when Trump stood up and spoke at the World Economic Forum, basically saying he denounced their overall agenda to control the people and just everything. And that was when I knew Trump was going to have significant issues moving forward, because the World Economic Forum is made up of all of these people in politics and media and industry and corporations, and it's basically the top echelons of corporate America and media and politics. And he basically said, fuck you guys, I don't think what you're doing is right, and I'm standing up against it, and I'm going to be a problem for you. And I tell you what, if the media didn't just start swarming with what Nancy Pelosi herself called the what was it called? The some kind of smear tactic. She was trying to explain it as though it was something that the Republican Party were doing to Democrats. But really, it was exactly the playbook that the Democrats have been utilizing for a long time, where they create this fake narrative. They get the media to pick it up. Then the politics can refer back to the media, legitimizing their original claims. And it's just like this cycle of shit. And the public generally buys into all of it, hook, line, and sinker, to establish their own personal political narratives. And it works. We've seen it work, because now we had somebody take a shot at former President Trump because of all of these false narratives about him, who he is, what he's going to do, all of it. And it absolutely disgusts me to the core. I can't believe that in 2024, this is what we've come to. So anyway, I'm not going to go further into it politically because I know that there are people on the right, left, and center that watch this channel. But I am going to publicly say that I absolutely 100% support Donald Trump for 2024. And I hope he continues to stand in the way of all of the bullshit, nonsensical, chaotic uprising of all of the people hooked on all sorts of pharmaceutical drugs and, trying to, just all of the people out there that buy into all of these media narratives and are creating such chaos in this country as a result of it because they don't know where else to turn, or they put their faith and their trust in mediums that are ultimately paid for by those projecting these narratives to begin with to profit off of our backs. And if you want to know exactly how I feel, read the damn article. I'm willing to hear your comments. I'm willing to read every single one of them. Leave your comments. Let me know what you guys think. But don't tell me what you think because it's something you read in some bullshit article written by some crazy person who is basically bought and paid for. I want to know what you actually think. Can you think? Are you capable of thinking outside of what you're told to think by mainstream media? Is that so far out of reach nowadays that everything everybody regurgitates is what they're told by somebody else who has whether it's a financial agenda or some sort of political agenda? Are we not able to think outside of the box today? And if we do, are we okay with being branded as some form of conspiracy theorist or some sort of MAGA terrorist or whatever because we don't toe the freaking norm, the line of those that are basically trying to control us to begin with? When everyone in the media is ultimately being rewarded through financial, like the Rachel Maddow, what'd she make, $30 million a year? Look at everything she said during the pandemic and how much of that was disproven. You've got all of these different people who are out there spewing nonsense that hurt the public, that create narratives to try and ultimately hurt political opponents that aren't towing the line of all of these grand agendas many people don't even know exist. But yet they have this strong conviction against someone and they can't even tell you why. That is what we call brainwashed. I'm sorry, folks, but it is what it is. If you storm around all over the place, online and off, with a severe TDS or a Trump derangement syndrome, and all you have to back that up are narratives perpetuated by the media telling you what to think about the individual, but you don't really know why, you don't have any real basis in truth for any of it. I mean, look at what CNN did to Joe Rogan. They basically filtered his video when he had caught the virus and made him look deathly ill and green because he was using something that they were being paid to promote. He was using something other than what they were being paid to promote. And it was against the narrative. So he was look at this guy. He's using this form of treatment and look at how ill and deathly terrible he is. These are the narratives that they project, and these are the narratives people buy into, and then they take action based on that. People, we've got to grow up. I mean, we really have to grow up, and we have to open our eyes to the real truth and what's really happening today, because it absolutely scares the shit out of me. But right now, I look at these photos. Oh, you watch a man at a rally who's been through more hell than I think any political candidate outside of the ones that were successfully terminated. And after a grazing shot to the head that should have taken him out, don't get it mixed up. He turned his head at just the right time that he was grazed in the ear instead of just taking it full on. And his first instinct, his first act, rising up from that, was to pump his fist in defiance and say, fight, fight, fight. This is not a political person. This is not somebody in politics for self-gain. This is not a career politician that's towing a common party line or a common party agenda. This is somebody who truly believes, and I believe now, is actually truly standing in the way of those that are trying to do us no good. And I support him 100%. Stand in the way. Stand in the way and help try and slow the roll of those that are trying to enslave us, lie to us, take our money, take our freedoms, tax the shit out of us while they grow the government that is ultimately put in place and expanded upon to further control us in this endless cycle of you'll own nothing and be happy. I don't know any other way of putting it, but that's what I believe. And if you disagree, that's okay. But I encourage you to educate yourself a little bit deeper. Yeah, read the article that I wrote and let me know what you think. I almost didn't even publish it because nowadays you publish anything like this and it makes you a target and it makes you somebody that people want to go after. But you know what? I don't give a fuck anymore. I really don't. We have gone so far downhill and everything just continues to get worse and worse. And I just don't give a shit anymore. I'm tired of the control. I'm tired of the censorship. I'm tired of feeling like I have to censor every word that comes out of my mouth or I'm going to be shadow banned or blacklisted or shut down or terminated or whatever because I'm not towing the fucking line of those that control everything. I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. I'm not saying I'm going to make this channel a political channel. I'm saying my piece in this video and that's it. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. That's fine by me. But I ultimately feel like I have to get it out because I'm tired of the way everything is today. I'm tired of seeing everything devolve further and further and further. And it's all for no other reason than political gain by one individual party. Because they want to retain control in any way they can so they can continue furthering their agenda for 2030 that is not doing us any fucking favors, whether you know it or not. And if you don't know it, I highly encourage you to spend a week and learn it and understand what's actually going on behind the narratives that the major media are being paid to perpetuate. That's it. That's all I'm going to say about it. Trump reportedly in good spirits and will attend Nashville's Bitcoin conference. I didn't even know he was planning on attending. I've had so many people ask me, man, I almost feel sick. I really do. I feel almost sick about all of this. And I know that the majority of you aren't going to put in the time to read the article where I break down so many things and how we got here and where it started and how and everything else. But you really should. I'm telling you, you really should. CEO David Bailey says he spoke with the former president's team in the wake of the July 13th assassination attempt. I still can't even believe we have to say this nowadays in 2024. You know what I just read and I just saw the video. You know that the 21-year-old wannabe assassin was actually featured in a BlackRock promotional commercial several years back. It was a video about school, and I guess he was in high school, and he was like quickly featured in this video. How coincidental is that shit? I'm not saying BlackRock had anything to do with anything. I'm just saying it's always really interesting when these people that commit such disgusting acts have some sort of weird and odd connection. You know how big this United States is? You know how many people are in the world? You know how many people are in this country alone? And it just so happens that individuals that are somehow connected to this, that, or another thing are the ones that ultimately commit these insane acts. I don't know. I just find it really difficult to say it's nothing but coincidence. But anyway, I guess Trump is going to be attending the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. And at this point, I feel like he should just stay safe. I understand. I understand his commitment. And I understand that he's trying to make a stance and basically say he supports blockchain. He supports the kind of the self-sovereignty narrative associated with blockchain tech and the decentralized nature of blockchain tech. And I'm just happy to know that the blockchain space has his support. But I feel like at this point, he should be focused on making sure he's around to make these changes, and not feel obligated to make these personal appearances. We get it, especially now. We get it. We hear you. I look forward to seeing how he's able to change the way things are. And I really hope he does. I really, truly hope he does. I truly believe that when he says, "They're after you, I'm just standing in their way," I don't think there's ever been a time that has proven that more than yesterday. And I believe that those acts are ultimately, at a large degree, due to the media. And I honestly believe that anybody that calls for the physical harm of a president or otherwise, I don't care what side of the fence they're on. I'm not a fan of Biden at all. I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris. I'm not a fan of Pelosi, but I would never have the audacity to wish harm to any of them. I can wish for them to be out of office all day. I could wish that their careers be ended because they've been outvoted or elected out, whatever. But I would never have the audacity or the derangement to wish somebody take them out. I saw a recent video. I mean, they've been all over the place lately. People calling for people to start taking Trump out. Like the actress of like Orange is the New Black. I thought she was great. I loved her in the show. I just communicated from a friend, somebody I've known for years and years. He's been fighting in the UFC and he's been making a run of his career. He's got a family now, and I've been a big supporter of him, publicly. And he posted something to the effect like, I can't believe something to the effect that like Trump staged an assassination attempt to help himself. And I just said, no, I'm done with you, dude. If this is where you're going to start posting publicly on Twitter this absolute nonsense, I'm done. I unfollowed him. I posted a comment and said, "You've lost my support 100%. I'm done with you." And that was it. I'm just not going to support that kind of nonsense. I'm done with that bullshit. I'm done with bullshit narratives. I'm done with bullshit, period. If that's all you've got, and you're going to continue pushing that kind of shit out there for political gain, financial gain, popularity, whatever, I'm fucking done with you. I don't want anything of it. Come with facts or don't come at all. Stay your ass at home. If you don't know what's going on, stay your ass at home. I'm done with all of the nonsense today. I'm absolutely over it. When it gets to the point where all of this bullshit that's been spewed for years is ultimately culminating in an assassination attempt of a human being, I'm fucking done with you. That's all there is to it. Bitcoin pumps past $60,000 mark following Trump rally shooting. Bitcoin price leapfrogs the $60,000 hurdle as an attack on Trump reignites re-election buzz. And U.S. Bitcoin spot ETFs attract over $1 billion in net inflows in a week, despite bearish market sentiment. So we're going to look at some of this stuff on the charts. And yeah, you want to know how I feel? Don't trust the vote, verify it. And that's it. I'm like, I just ordered one of these shirts and one of the other ones from the Cardano Club store I launched. I've seen a few sales come in, so I'm very grateful. And I know somebody bought one of the Let's Chang the World. Man, no, I feel like of all shirts, this is the big. This sounds like a self plug. I'm getting off. I don't even want to I don't even want to talk about my own shit right now. 20% of people, so this rose up, this was 19% this morning, 20% of the Cardano staking nodes have upgraded to 9.0.0, preparing for the Chain hard fork once we reach 70%. It's been about a week and we hit 20%. So I'm going to say that, by August, we are going to officially launch the Chain hard fork, and that will become a reality. And that'll either be, I'm guessing, probably right before or right at the time of Rare Evo, the Rare Evo convention in Vegas in August. And I know that my own developer, he's getting ready. He's gathering the tools, gathering everything up. I think we're going to start moving forward towards upgrading the Crow node. And he wants to make sure he picks the best time, and to try and make sure we don't have any blocks that, we don't want to lose any blocks or anything like that during the upgrade. So that's what he's preparing for now. If you're not delegated to the Crow node, give it a thought. It definitely helps a lot. Make sure you join my locals, because I'm going to be posting some stuff. We're getting a groove, and I'm working on a bunch of things. I've been working on automating a lot of things outside, and then that way I can really barrel down on my locals and start sharing some good stuff. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. So basically, as of right now, Bitcoin's price has been it peaked out at around 60,400 or so, but right around this area, we have over $1.2 billion in liquidity just ready to be plucked. And once we get to that point and we hold, then I will say, all right, I think the bottom was set around the $53,500 mark. Even though we have growing liquidity sitting at around 472 million, around the 56,400 range, 56,000, maybe 800. So within that window, but and we could potentially don't kid yourselves. We could pick up this $1.2 billion in liquidity up here around the $61,000 mark in a wick, to get rid of all of that liquidity sitting there and come right back down to pick this up. It just depends on the overall sentiment in the market and what the public generally believes is going to happen, because the market makers play to the overall sentiment in crypto. And right now the sentiment is good, because a lot of people are believing we've bottomed, but and more of that sentiment is going to grow, but ultimately it's just going to be an effort to pick up this $1.2 billion, liquidate those folks, and then see what happens from there. And if we look at the liquidity chart, this is a 1 month liquidity chart. You can see, the solid point right there at 1.2, there's $1.2 billion. Did I change that? $1.2 billion of liquidity sitting just above or just under $61,000. And then from there, you got another $1 billion sitting at around $65,000. So, and you can see under this mark here, around 56,400, it fades. It's fading more and more. So, there's a lot of liquidity between here and, even like the $70,000 range. And we could literally jump to that in no time. And we could go from where we're at to 70,000 and start plugging new all-time highs in a week. But I'm not 100% certain that that's what's playing out. And also if we look at Cardano, we see a significant rally. I mean, basically a 10-cent pump. And this is a 4-hour chart. So over the course of, basically roughly a week and a half or so, we were all the way down at the bottom of 32 cents. We broke out of this pattern here, and we broke out to the upside. And, I predicted a lot of this, and I predicted this, and I had it all drawn out. I deleted it. But everything is playing out as I suspected. And I also said that we might pull back once we get to a local peak. We will then probably pull back, and we'll pull back to somewhere around the 40 to 41 cent range before we bounce yet again and start aiming towards the 81 cents. And that will be a very, very nice day for everybody holding Cardano. But this also goes to show that, Cardano pumped. This pump was happening when everything else in the market was either stagnant or going down. So, for people out there trying to spread all these narratives about Cardano, just come with facts or shut the hell up. The same with everything else. I'm done with you guys too, man. Some of you guys are probably in my comments right now. I haven't even looked at the comments yet. They're trying to, I feel like a lot of these guys are just little robot lemmings. They just run around and they try to spread FUD and bullshit. Some of them I'm willing to bet, especially with what I've been learning about AI automation. I believe some of these guys, they see they have their automation set up to trigger when videos are posted with a particular headline or keyword, and those bots just go and they just start posting stupid bullshit. And, I don't even pay attention to them anymore. I just start banning them when I see them because it's like, it's not real. They're not real. And if they are real, they're just idiots that don't really know any better anyway. And they probably hold a bag of something else. And I've got no time for it anymore. I'm at a point now where I have absolutely no fucking time for bullshit. I'm done. I'm not putting up with it. I'm not entertaining it. I'm done. I feel like it's too damaging to what's real, and I'm over it. I'm tired of all these bullshit claims of misinformation, this, misinformation, that, when in turn, that's all these people are pumping out is constant misinformation, bullshit, false narratives. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the game. I'm sick of the hustle. I'm sick of all of it. I'm honestly sick of being afraid of this regime, this insane, maniacal bullshit regime that's just doing nothing but trying to scare the people that follow and toe the line into maintaining that position, and then scare the people that have an opposition or opposing perspective to it from vocalizing what they think and feel based on real fucking facts, not just, oh, this is my emotional opinion. No, real facts on what's going on. The censorship and just all of it. I'm like, what country do we fucking live in, people? And I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Like, what country do you want to live in? If you're all about socialistic censorship and all of this bullshit, go fucking live in China. They thrive on that. Some of them love it there. If that's the world you want to live in, then go be it. Go be there. Go enjoy that life. For those of us that actually want to work and achieve and do things, and we're learning skills and we're trying to be something and be somebody because we're in a country that's supposed to fuel that, that's what we're here for. It's the pursuit of the American dream. It's the idea that we can put in the work and achieve and be rewarded for that accomplishment. We shouldn't have to worry about putting in all of this work, achieving something, and then have it all stripped away to distribute to a bunch of people that want to sit around smoking fucking pot and calling for the assassination of a president. I'm sorry, but that's not the world I want to be in. And it's just time for all that bullshit to stop. I've had enough. I've absolutely had a fuck enough. I'm over it. There's no room for this shit anymore. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the comments before I get too hot-headed. I'm just so sick of it. Good Sunday to you. Real, not fake. You talking about the photo? That's real. That's absolutely real. This is real. And what disgusts me even more is, how CNN and MSNBC, of course, they're trying to avoid calling that, saying that, there was an assassination attempt. They were basically trying to hide that and say Trump fell during a rally, or rally interrupted by Secret Service. I mean, it's unbelievable. And what's more unbelievable is the number of people that still subscribe to these media outlets to get any sense of what's going on in the world. And they actually believe. MSNBC is by far the worst, in my opinion. I cannot even believe they exist. I cannot. To me, I feel like there's more truth in watching South Park than watching some of these media outlets. It blows my mind, from their headlines to their rhetoric. And it's just like, I'm telling you, read the article. I break it down, what empowered them to start being this way. But no, these are real photos from the recent Trump rally. And that one, that one just chokes me up every time. I can't look at this and everything that this photo says and not get choked up. I mean, when somebody's trying to shoot, somebody is trying to murder you, somebody is trying to take your life, and your first instinct is to rise up and say, fight, 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 and not cower in fear like most of these little bullshit ass politicians, where they all, the Secret Service, something happens, they're like, oh God, and they're all afraid to even stand up and crawl, and they're all ushered into the vehicle like little fucking, this is a leader. This is a leader. I don't give a shit what you have to say. This is a leader. This is somebody who I believe truly stood up at a time when most men would have crumbled in fear. And this man stood up and just said, fight. And I'm telling you, I'm done. I'm sold. I'm done. You cannot deny the conviction of this man. This goes beyond just political ideology. This is somebody who has literally been fighting since day one for a job that he donated his damn salary, the $400,000 a year. How many of you even know he was donating that to charities? He wasn't even taking the money. I think he's probably the first and only president in history that was worth less after he left office than he was when he was elected. And yet there are all these people out there that just like, oh, TDS out the ass. They can't even explain to you why. Oh, he had mean tweets, or, oh, his personality sucks. So does yours. I mean, seriously. It's like, never mind what the man actually achieved. Never mind the reality of who he was before he was president. Never mind the fact that everyone turned on him when he started to actually run for president, and they all realized that he wasn't going to be playing their game. Never mind how, I mean, it's like people just don't get it, man. They don't get it. And it's like they don't see it. I have friends that they're blind as a bat. They have no idea. They love to think they have a clue, but they don't. And it's just like, they don't spend the time. Nowadays, that's what sucks. Because everything is basically bent on some sort of lie. Nobody has the time that it takes to dive deeper and to dive and to sort through the mess. And it's like, where everywhere you turn, whether it's social media, Facebook, or YouTube, or the cable news, or whatever, it's like they're all working together. They all perpetuate this nonsense. And what do they say? Like, if you tell a lie enough, it becomes truth over time, because it's just like people get programmed to accept what they're exposed to commonly and often. And it's like it starts to break down your truth barriers because it's all you see everywhere. You could Google search any mundane, benign question about Trump, and what you'll see, the top 10 results are all going to be some form of propaganda, some sort of misinformation, accusation, some sort of bullshit. It's because they all work together to coordinate these messages to control the minds of everyone. And it's just like, it blows my mind that people just accept a lot of this as truth. Honestly, I think the entire thing was suspect. Good television, but I don't know that I believe any of it. You don't believe what? What don't you believe? An innocent bystander was killed during this rally. The shooter was killed. I've been seeing all the stuff that's starting to come out about the shooter, who was basically what whatever, man. I don't know what to tell you. Predicted, at least. Yeah, it's been predicted by a lot of people. I made it live finally. Yeah, I don't know if this is a video a lot of you guys are going to enjoy. I'm sorry if it's not, but Trump is such a gangster. Yeah, the media is a joke. Their lies trick weak-minded. I couldn't say it better. You know what? I'm putting in a dip. I don't care. This is my damn channel. I'll do what I want. I need a dip. I'm like getting too hot-headed. I need to relax. I'm like shaking up. I'm legitimately shaken up. I'm like trying not to just fucking go nuts and just, I just can't believe this is where we live. I truly can't believe that this is where we live. I can't believe that this is all real. I mean, if you want, how many of you, I'm curious in the chat, how many of you have actually read the book 1984? I'm like genuinely interested to know. Because if you haven't, let's say if you haven't read the book 1984, I'm going to pull something up for you that you guys should absolutely check out. Oh my God, I got to stop shaking. It's I've tried watching the movies in the past because there's two of them. There's the original. It's really, really old. I think it's black and white. It's very creepy. And then there was a bit of a remake, and then the book. And like all of that, cool. Read it. A lot of people have, but I have a hard time reading fiction. And so what I did was I found an audiobook that's not like a normal audiobook. It's rather than like Bob said, this, and Bob standing there in his blue blazer with a high quality fabric, and like just describing like every little tiny detail of like the scene, right? Which bores the shit out of me because I don't care. That's why I generally read a lot of nonfiction, which is why I also read a lot of stuff pertaining to like politics, history, the Fourth Turing, and all my books are pretty much nonfiction books. I have to be learning something. I have to feel like I'm making progress. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting time. And when I'm reading a book that's just going into hyper detail about the dumbest shit to try and set the vision in my head, it's like some people love it. Like my wife loves that stuff, but she's also a speed reader. She read like the entire collection of what's the one where it's all about S&M and shit, but it's kind of corny. Gray, I don't even remember. You guys know what I'm talking about, but she read that whole damn collection. She read the whole thing in like 3 or 4 days, like all of them. But I can't do that. It takes me forever to read fiction. But anyway, I really am just trying to calm down right now. I'm sorry. I'm still shaken up. I'm legitimately still shaken up. And I feel I'm so disgusted by everything that's going on right now. Like it's beyond the pale. And what's worse is that people just don't seem to, it doesn't click with people. I feel like more and more people are starting to realize what's been going on, how they've been misled, and how, like, what the real agenda is. This isn't about him being like a Hitler or a dictator or any of that shit. It's not, because he's not. If any of that shit were true, he would have done it in his first term. What do they think all of a sudden he's a changed, like everything about him has changed and he's gonna I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of these people just don't want him to have the power to deep dive into everything they've done to him. That's all they're really afraid of. And they're trying to project all this bullshit on the public because they want the public to be their meat shield. And I'm just like, stop being so damn corrupt if you're not worried about, if you don't want to have to worry about potential recourse from it. I mean, just stop being terrible. Anyway, okay. I'm pulling this up, even though I know most people aren't going to give a shit. But so there's a version of this book. It's not just the audio book. It's basically a version. There it is. Audible original. All right. So this is what you guys need to look at. It's 1984, only from Audible. You want this version because it's basically like a 4.5 hour or 3.5 hour listen, because it basically, rather than it describe like all the sounds and the atmosphere and all of that, it's played out. It's almost like listening to a movie, but it's more descriptive. It's really hard to explain, but it was actually a really entertaining listen. It's like listening to a play almost, but with lots of effects and things. And I'm telling you guys, this couldn't be more prophetic than, it's probably the most prophetic book I've ever read or listened to. Obviously the counter to this was Brave New World. I forget who wrote Brave New World, but you've got 1984, which is where like all your speech is censored because they're trying to control what you think, and the less words you can use to project, to communicate, then it basically slows down your thinking process because you have less words to feel, think, or use. And what you're allowed to do, like everything is controlled, everything is for Big Brother, everything is under the guise and fingertips of the government. Because the government is big and it controls everything. All of the things that basically are in motion now. Like what you get is what you're given, like it, shut up, and toe the line. It's insane. And then the counter to this is Brave New World, which is basically like the idea of this drug-induced utopia where everything is also still very much controlled, but it's all about like, it's just both ends of the spectrum are creepy, right? And so, but yeah, you guys have to listen to that. If you have not read or listened to 1984 yet by George Orwell, you absolutely have to, because it almost reads like a predictive playbook for what's been happening the last like 8 years, 10 years. So I don't know. I always feel like a lot of this stuff is falling on deaf ears, because I feel like those of you that already know, you already know. But Alex Jones was correct again. The only thing I really know of that Alex Jones has been wrong about was the Sandy Hook stuff. I mean, honestly, I've been listening to Alex Jones since the late 90s, and he's uncovered so much stuff over the years that everyone else was afraid to. And of course, he's branded as a conspiracy theorist. He sounds insane. I mean, let's be real. Alex Jones sounds like a maniac. But I feel like he means well, ultimately. I just think he should tone down some of the rhetoric a little bit. But the one thing you'd always say is I don't make up this shit. I report what's in the news and media, and I connect the dots. So yeah. Crow, when are we gonna see 8 at 10 cents? We're not. Hassan, we're not. You give up on that goal right now. Trump 2024. I never truly cared about politics at all until I started seeing everything that was happening with Trump. I, honest to God, I thought, and I remember telling my wife before he was elected, I said, when I look at someone like Trump, I see a very arrogant, very shrewd businessman who's kind of entitled, but who's made a lot of money. He's had a lot of ups and downs, and he's had a lot of business ideas. A lot of them have failed because he was successful in business when it came to like real estate development and the real estate world. That was his bag. That was his big thing. And he tried to spread, his interests across, like, I don't know, like was a state company and a university and like all these different things, all these different ideas. And, none of them really seem to come to fruition for him, which is fine, right? Like we all have failures in business. We have all tried to do different things, have different ideas, and they don't come to fruition. But that wasn't where he made his money. I mean, like he made his money in real estate development. That's basically the business he was ultimately born into. And so it is what it is. But I told my wife, I said, this man, while very arrogant and pulls no punches, like if you take a shot at him, he's taking a shot right back. Like he's not gonna like just sit there and be like, oh, whatever, right? I feel like to some extent, any businessman, anyone on that level has, I would assume, a sense of insecurity, right? Like everybody has insecurities. And so the point I'm making is that when I saw him, there was something about him that I believed he was going about becoming president. He wanted to become the president to become the best president we've ever had. If for no other reason at the time than because he disagreed with everything that was happening in the country, he felt like he was somebody capable of making changes. And that he is not so much about money anymore because he's made the money. Now he's about legacy. And I believed he was going to stop at nothing to prove that he was a bigger man than all of the politicians that came before him. That's what I believed in early on. And that was at a time when I just didn't even care about politics. But I felt of all the politicians I've seen to date, he was somebody that I thought, okay, He's not a career politician. He's a power player businessman, and his arrogance is going to drive him to try and become the best president ever because that's what he wants. Trump, Trump, Trump. He wants his name associated with greatness in all things. Whether he fails or not, that's his ego, right? And a man without ego is a guy sitting around playing video games, smoking weed all day, right? Like, let's be real about it. Ego drives the man. And that's it. And so it wasn't until I saw what the left were doing, creating all of these narratives, attacking him constantly. I mean, just how nasty they were. And when I started really seeing through it and like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, wow. I started realizing how the political game was played, but it's only grown exponentially since then, magnified and gone to such extremes that now, they're indicting him for all kinds of shit. They're changing laws. I mean, they were changing laws during the election to make things that should have been illegal during an election legal so that they could get by with it. And they had all of this very orchestrated, coordinated left-wing system that, enabled them to do things that should have been illegal, but ultimately weren't. So there was no, just the whole thing is just insanity. And I started really paying close attention, and I started reading everything. I've read books on politics. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks about all kinds of stuff. I just opening my eyes, man, just being able to see through the bullshit. And it's like, once you really start making sense of what's going on and you start seeing things, then you start seeing the people that toe these lines in a different light, because it goes beyond just like, well, this is my personal preference. Now it goes into, you almost have to want to believe in what you're being projected or what you're being fed. You almost have to want to believe it for some reason to go along with it, whether it's because you're being financially incentivized or it somehow represents a political topic that you hold close, whether that's gun rights, abortion, or whatever, right? And it's such a well-orchestrated and well-greased machine. It's scary as hell. It's scary as hell. And it has to change. Things absolutely have to change. Have been waiting for this video. Thanks, Crow. What's up, Matthias? I wasn't even sure I was going to do a video about it. I'm afraid of it, man. I feel like stuff like this, it's like it gets you shadow banned. It's like, my YouTube channel is basically what I do. But I'm like, I feel like it's just time to say something. It's just time to be straight up and stop mincing words all the time, because this is where we're at. This is where we're at now. An assassination attempt on a president, because there's so many people afraid to talk. There's so many people afraid to say anything, because in this digital media world, especially those of us that make a living from being in the public eye, and granted, I'm just a little crypto YouTuber. I'm nobody, but it's still, with what I have, it's how I live. And to have that threatened because I spoke my opinion in a country that's supposed to support freedom of speech. I mean, we've just gotten so out of hand with this shit. And the thing is that the people that are okay right now with censorship and, oh, that person disagrees with me, you should be shut down and canceled and this and that, they don't realize they don't have, I used to always say you can judge someone's intelligence by their foresight. Like if you're playing a game of chess, the best chess players can play 10 moves in advance. It's their foresight, and their foresight is what empowers them on the table. And I always assume, like, being able to, even getting into crypto early on, I would always say, it's not about what crypto is today, but where crypto is going to be and where it's leading us into tomorrow. That is what it's having, that foresight. And I feel like there are so many of these people that support this insane, chaotic craziness right now because currently it supports them and their personal agendas or their personal goals politically. But the reality is it's just a matter of time until that pendulum swings back the other way and everything is used against them. And then they're victims again, right? And it's just like, if everybody could just figure out a way to work together. I wrote about this in the article. It's like, we, whether you're right or left, we need each other in society, because without the right, you're probably not going to have any buildings or infrastructure. Let's be real. I don't know. Do any of you know any liberal leftist construction workers? I mean, I'm just curious. If you do, I'd love to know. But I'm guessing there aren't many at all, if there are any, because the mentality of a man that's willing to work hard for his life and his family and what he makes, as opposed to like somebody who's like off burning weed at some, working on their art major while they're being indoctrinated into a system of thought by all of these crazy people. I'm like, those are two completely different worlds. But that guy who's out there working his ass off every day, the police officer who's out there literally putting his ass on the line. I've seen so many videos of police officers shot and ultimately killed in the line of duty, protecting a bunch of people that are ultimately trying to defund them. You know what I mean? And it's just like, who do you call? Like, if you're being robbed or something happens, do you call your neighbor? Like, hey, I just got robbed. Let's go find these people. Are you going to call your liberal buddy who's toked up on whatever? And he's in the middle of dyeing his hair blue, and you're going to call him to like get revenge or redemption on somebody that like did something terrible to you? No, you're calling the police. It's like, we need each other. But at the same time, when that guy's done building that sky-rise building that's going to employ thousands of people, when he's bored, what does he want to do? He wants to go see a movie. He wants to be entertained. He wants a break. So he's going to rely on those on the left. Ultimately, as crazy as it sounds, he's going to rely on the art majors and the writers and the producers and the people that are going to create that entertainment for him to make his life that much easier, so that he can basically get a break to go back to work and building the infrastructure for the world. It's the academics on the left that we rely on to give us the sciences and the means of being able to produce new technologies in the world. We need each other. And that's just a fact. But politics have created this system whereby they can truly divide us to maintain a sense of control and power over all of us. And it's just a matter of what trigger points you utilize to achieve whatever the ends are. And it's disgusting what we've devolved into. And a lot of it has been a result of, I've talked about it in the past, the whole Smith-Mundt Act, where they repealed the restriction. Obama's administration silently, it was never, I don't think it was ever announced, but it's documented, it's real for all of you people that like to call conspiracy theorists on everything that's like based in truth. He basically repealed the act that prohibited the media from spreading false information, misinformation, and propaganda. And since that happened, everything has just devolved into a shitstorm. It's all a part of a grand agenda, folks. I'm telling you. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fucking fact. And if everything that has not happened lately doesn't open your eyes to what's really going on, that this isn't really about abortion. This isn't really about like my body, it's not about any of that shit. You guys are all just being used as triggers and meat shields for what the real agenda is. And that's ultimately to make sure that we as a public, as a society, have less power over our own lives. And ultimately, we have to continue feeding in through higher taxation, through all these different means, feeding all of what we do make and generate as individuals, and continue pumping it into a system that wants to grow and grow and grow, ultimately eating us and everything that we love and what we consider dear and valuable in this country. And we were not built on any of that. We were built on the foundation of, freedom of speech, the freedom to pursue happiness, just freedom in general. We're not a third world country that's led by a dictatorship, but I've never seen an administration closer to a dictatorship than the current one we're in right now. I'm sorry. And it doesn't matter if you're a part of the line that watches your CNN, eating your popcorn, going, yeah, F that guy, and you're like all a part of that machine. It doesn't matter. You're still a part of a system. Look up the Red Army, during the time of like Mao and like, all of that stuff happening, I don't even get too deep into it because it's crazy dark, but the Red Army was basically it's how the government indoctrinated a bunch of people in college to form up and basically become like a force to be reckoned with on behalf of a dictator. And the thing of it is we see all this stuff. And if you bring up anything today, I've had these arguments with some of friends on the left where you could very easily draw a line and say, look at this. This is happening right now. This is exactly what happened then. And they'll all throw you the same article that basically tries to debunk the idea that, there are similarities between what's been happening the last few years and what happened during the times of Hitler. But if they say something like, oh, this guy, never mind all of these things that are literally like out of the same playbook, but this guy with no actual evidence, with nothing ever happening to support the idea, but this guy is like Hitler. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, folks. I implore anyone to make it make sense. You can't. So many people out there with TDS can't even tell you why they have why they feel that way. Outside of, if you read a right-leaning article and a left-leaning article, you'll find some glaring differences in the approach to writing. The right-leaning article generally is mostly a lot of facts with some opinion. A left-leaning article adds so much in to what it is, how you should feel about it. It's basically like every time I've read a leftist article, it feels like brainwashing. It feels like it's constantly telling me how I should be angry, why I should be angry, what I should potentially do about that anger and how I feel about it, and off to the next thing. Furthering that whole idea of why I should be triggered by all of these things associated with this person. And that's the thing. People on the left typically it's like Catholicism. When I was a kid growing up, if I wanted to read a book on religion, because like some of you guys know, I went through a period where I thought about being a priest, and I was very serious about it. And anytime I would talk to the family about like a book I wanted to read or something I was into, they would show me the back of a book, and it had to have like the Catholic symbol on it to basically say, this is okay for you to read. Right. It's all a part of indoctrination. And it's like, I'm just so over it. Just so over it. Thank you, man. First, last, you can be anybody. Thank you. I appreciate that. He could have won without this. I mean, Biden. Yeah. Together we stand, divided we fall. Absolutely. I really just think that all of us have to figure out how to get past our own biases, and just accept the fact that we've all grown up in a different life, under different circumstances, that it's okay to be different. It's even okay to believe differently. I don't care who you are, I don't care what your religion is. I really don't care what your sexual preference is. I don't even care what your political ideologies are. When I care is when you try to force whatever you believe onto other people, right? Like, I might share my opinion here, but I'm the first to tell you, if you believe differently, you have your reasons. That's okay. Where I draw a line is when that political agenda or that ideology starts spreading into lies and false narratives, accusations, defamation, all of these things that if your ideology or what you believe isn't strong enough to stand on its merit alone without creating a bubble of bullshit, to try and steer other people to believe the same way you do, or if that doesn't work, censorship and control, chances are it's time to recheck your narrative. And it really is time to like rethink what you think, because it's just nonsensical, and it can only do harm. I mean, period. It can only do harm. live streaming during the European football final. Oh, am I? I have no idea. I don't really watch football. I watched my first game recently, but um, Trump is bought, but he may have a soul. Bought by who, man? Who is Trump bought by? Corporate interests because he lowers taxes? I mean, is that the culmination of what you mean by him being bought? I mean, a man who makes his own money and basically went into the presidency very wealthy on his own merit, and donated his presidential salary, denied a lot of funding that he could have had because he didn't want to be under the thumb of basically corporate America. You know, I mean, there's so much people. There's yeah. Soccer is boring. I actually didn't think soccer was boring. We watched our first game recently, but I do think that those guys, the way they overreact to every physical touch, and I know it's like a part of the strategy for maintaining control of the ball and time and all that, but I felt like I was watching a lot of like super sensitive children run around, kick a ball, feign injury. You know, oh, this guy bumped me, but I'm going to throw myself to the ground and roll around like my body's on fire. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's like, I hope none of those guys ever got into a real fight because, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I was talking to a good friend of mine about it, who's a major soccer fan. Actually, him and his wife are big soccer fans. He's from Uruguay and she's from Colombia. And they're like, you know, like bitter rivals when it comes to football. You know, and I told him, I'm like, dude, I tried to watch the game, but it's just like every time anybody got bumped or anything happened at all, I even watched one guy elbow someone else and then act like he was hit and threw himself down, and he was ultimately ejected from the game. And I'm like, you know what? That stuff that kind of bullshit at this point, that just needs to be like, I don't know about career ending, but you need like maybe a 3-strike policy with that shit. If you are, because it just ruins the game. I mean, ultimately, for newcomers like me who want to watch a competitive sport, and my wife and I both, we watched it at a bar together, and we wanted to get into it. But the bullshit with all of the faking injuries and the over dramatization of injuries and all of that, we were out of it. We were like, this is stupid. Like, these guys, this doesn't even look like a sport. It just looks like, you know, a bunch of people crying wolf about bullshit to try and get an edge over their opponent. And I'm like, I'm seeing enough of that. I don't need it in my sports too. So, yeah. JFK has a part to do with this. Will make more sense later. I don't know what you're saying there at all. Interesting. It was a psyop to make you have an emotional reaction. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't buy that at all. If that were true, then that would be like saying that the left has been doing everything with all of these court cases and all of these like left controlled indictments and all of this stuff, that everything that we've seen was all somehow to try and push Trump into the front running. I don't think that's the plan. I don't think that was the agenda. I mean, I could be wrong. I've said in the past that there was a chance that Trump was some form of controlled opposition. But I just don't see it. And if it started that way, it sure as hell didn't end that way. When a bullet grazes your face from 1,000 yards or however far that guy was, I'm sorry, that just, and then people are dying in the crowd, then those bullets are real, for one. And I really don't think there's some 20-year-old. As a matter of fact, I just watched this guy who I kind of like. I've seen him on Joe Rogan. I can't remember his name now. He's got big curly hair. He's like a former CIA operative. Like I forget what he's like. We don't like the word spy. That's for the movies, but he had a term for himself. But anyway, he was like a former CIA operative of some kind. and smart guy. He's done a lot of talks about how, you learn how to read people and manipulate conversation and like, read the truth and all this other stuff. And he flat out said Trump just became the president. And he said he could tell that the shooter was an untrained shooter because of the way he shot, because he fired a shot and then a follow-up shot. And then when he realized those shots didn't hit, he just went bow, 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 bow. And he just fired off a bunch of rounds, hoping, like spraying and praying, basically, which is not something any trained shooter would do, because ultimately it makes it easier for people to figure out exactly where you're located. And no trained sniper, is going to just fire off a bunch of rounds from distance, enabling other people to ultimately figure out where he's located and, terminate him. And so, the idea that this is all like either some kind of staged event, when you watch the video and you see how shaken up Trump is, I mean, you can see how shaken he is. I mean, he's shaken. Somebody just tried to murder him. You do not stage that shit. Okay. I'm sorry, but when you look at those pictures, you can see the emotional conviction in his face. This is not staged, folks. If you think that's staged, you're insane. You're insane. If he rose up smiling like, I'm okay, look at me, yeah, let's go, that would be staged. When a man rises up, literally, you can see him shaking. He put his hands over the Secret Service guy as they're moving him. You can see him shaking. You can see the expression. That is like fear and like rattled. Somebody just tried to kill me. And they almost did. He was rattled and he stood up, rose his hand and said, fight, fight, fight. That is not staged, folks. I'm sorry. You can't stage or fake that kind of conviction. Donald Trump is not an actor. Okay. So say what you want, but that's insane. I was half asleep when my kid told me what just happened. I got up with fire in my heart, couldn't sleep for 2 hours, so disappointed with how the country has devolved into chaos. Absolutely. It's truly disgusting. It really is just disgusting. Be informed. Study the Orwellian definition of totalitarianism, to wit, a society in which the ruling class have lost any real function but succeed in clinging to power through force and fraud. I rest my case on that one. But the people that feel like they're on the right side of it, they're proud of it. They're happy. They think this is all a good thing right now. But I always tell people, people keep staring at the keyhole, not understanding that it's to a door that's keeping them locked in. And, it's like, it's just, exactly. The Dems are just puppets of the left. It was clear as day during, love you too. Love you too, Joe. Trump stands for freedom. Yeah, the other narrative that I'm seeing now is that everybody's trying to connect him to the Heritage Foundation's like 900-page book, this like Project 2025. And Trump said something to the effect that he wasn't even sure what it was. I don't necessarily believe that, but I think that was his way of basically saying, this isn't my book. Like, I'm not, there are like 2,000 different think tanks out there and they all publish their own shit. I guess the Heritage Foundation is obviously one of the biggest and it's made up of the most minds, I guess you can say. But I feel like the left have been trying to attach Trump's name to absolutely anything they can, trying to grasp at straws at this point. And yeah. I don't know if he's going to be speaking at the event. I would assume he's not going there just to be seen. I would assume he's going to speak, but I hope I hope he gets one of those bulletproof boxes like the popes wear or the popes use when they're out in public. Um, no time to stay silent, Crow, rant away. I hate even having to talk about this stuff, but it's just gotten to a point where, you know, yeah. I am now a huge fan of yours. You know, I really wish I could resonate with people on both sides because it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. We're all in this shit together. I just wish that people had the time to be more informed. Um, and I've seen through this globalist bullshit for years. So have I. You guys have to understand, I've been, even though I didn't take an active interest in politics until Trump ran, because I just thought it was such a crazy notion that this guy, like The Apprentice, uh, Trump, this guy that, at the time everybody idolized, like he was in every rap song. He was in movies and stuff because he was the man. You know what I mean? Um, and honestly, I think that was part of his personal narrative is that Trump was the American dream. Trump represented a lot of what people aspired to be. And then, that just changed. Once the media turned on him, everybody else did. And everybody's just started towing the media line. Like, oh, we're being told all this bad stuff about him. I guess it's time to change our tune. It's almost like a switch was flipped and everybody's programming was all altered. And it's funny because I've had really big engagements and arguments with somebody who prides himself on his intelligence and his mastery of chess and his chess ranking, and his wife is a professor and he's very high up in cybersecurity and all of that. But when it comes to politics, the guy's a moron, like just a flat out moron. He doesn't know anything other than anti-Trump memes and left-wing news media articles. Like that's it. But he, there's the sense of like academia and like, in the article that I wrote, it's like the left to me is broken up in two types of people. You have those that have been indoctrinated through academic colleges, where they're aspiring in like computer science or, some form of academia. And those people are basically indoctrinated into a system of thought whereby those that came before you are the ones that know more. You're still just a nobody, right? Like you trust the word of those above you. Whatever they say trickles down, and that's what you adopt as your belief system, right? And then the other side of that are like the art majors and things who are basically they're artists and they're, they like their weed and their recreational whatevers. And, they don't want to have accountability for anything they do. They just want to live their life. And, if they want to backpack through the world smelling like, whatever, like that's cool. But I got my college degree and, and honestly, I think that's ultimately who makes up the left. And like, I feel like the right is primarily like middle America. It's like the hard workers, the white collar folk or the blue collar folks, and some of the white collar. Like you're just basically you're working people with the nuclear family, like your firefighters, your police officers, the people who, they're not about the bullshit. They just want to work. They want to live their life. They want to maintain and be able to appreciate and enjoy the life they're working for. And it's just like every time we have a left-wing presidential administration, more and more of that life is being pulled away from them. And, it's like a lot of the people on the left, they're either towing that party line because that's just basically what they're told. And then the others are like, I don't want to work. I don't want to really have to do anything. I don't want to be accountable for anything. I just want the government to send me a check. And I want that check to come from the rich people who are really just middle America, who are actually working their asses off, There are a lot of like uncollege educated people, you know, the construction workers and you know, the people that are really grinding through life, breaking themselves down physically to make that check to support their families. And then you've got the other side, you're like, I want a piece of what that guy's working for, because I don't want to work. I don't want to have to be accountable for anything. I don't want to be accountable for my decisions. I want to be able to just run around and hook up with everyone on the apps. And, you know, if something goes wrong, I want to be able to take care of that easily without having to be accountable for that either. And then if I do, well, then I'm just going to go ahead and make the guy pay forever and try to ruin his life and control his life because the government says I can. And, you know, and it's like, I don't have a problem with the government getting bigger and more controlling, because this is all I'm ever going to amount to be anyway. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. And I see it every corner. And a lot of people don't want that way of life to be potentially disrupted by somebody who says, get out there and be somebody on your own fucking merit. Stop riding the backs of people that have put in the time and are breaking their backs, literally breaking their backs to try and put food on their own table and make a wage, you know? And it's just like, you know, a lot of these people, they get caught up in their own bullshit. Like the people in California who are all excited about this $20 minimum wage, thinking that they're going to get fucking rich flipping burgers. And then they realize, oh, we're stupid. They sold us this, but instead now we've got robots running our fast food joints and we all lost our jobs. Or like the people at Amazon who are laid off and they're all crying in the parking lot because they just got fired because Amazon just ushered in a whole bunch of new robots to take their jobs. It's like these people just want an easy out, and they don't realize there is no easy out. You either earn your way through and you learn. The more faith you put in your government to take care of you, the more you're going to be let down, because it doesn't matter who the fuck you are. The major corporations that are donating to the administrations and the politicians that are basically able to usher in these new policies, they don't give a fuck about you. They care about their profiteering. They care about, you know, especially if they're a public corporation. Public corporations have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders first, not its employees. And the government and the laws support that at any expense. If a corporation takes an action against its shareholders in favor of its employees or the people, they could be in trouble for that. I mean, look it up. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, what's it actually going to take for people to open up their eyes and realize that you are not the beneficiaries. You are the meat shields. You are the puppets. I'm sorry. But if you're reading and you're just absorbing all of this rhetoric and propaganda, you're dooming yourself. And you know, it's anyway. I mean, I'm getting all this out in this video, and I'm probably not going to talk about this shit ever again. I don't want to be a political pundit. I don't want I don't want to be, you know, Trump was in control under CIA Wuhan lab leak. Is he part of it all? I don't even know what you're talking about there. I really don't. That picture, fist raised in defiance with the flag in the background, will go in the annals of history, where America took its country back. I mean, I hope so. We're seeing it in other countries, you know, where the left-wing politicians are being just completely decimated by right-wingers who come in and start cleaning up the countries and this and that. You know, I really hope that's what happens here, because it's time to change. We can't take any more of this. Like, we really can't. Thank you. Is it Gerardo Hernandez? Love you too, man. NPCs. Yeah. Like, the world is basically just one big GTA game. Been seeing the shift in my friends. They're afraid to speak like this, but they're starting to think it. You know, I'm glad at least they're finally starting to open up. You know, I'm waiting for my liberal friend George to unblock me from Telegram, because we used to argue and stuff, but I got so fed up with his memes. I mean, like, it's all he would ever send me is just like TDS articles written by some propagandist and like, anti-Trump memes. And I'm like, dude, you got to stop sending me this shit all the time. Like it's like, it's disgusting for one, and it means nothing. And, it's like he could never, anytime we would get in a real deep conversation, every single time I would always end up with him backed into a corner having to like prove something, and he could never do it, and then he would just disappear for like 2 days, and then the next thing I'd see is another anti-Trump meme. And it's like, if you're going to spew so much anti-Trump rhetoric, at least have the ability to back it up with something of substance outside of just some political propagandist opinion. I mean, let's be real about it, and I would ask him all the time. I'm like, why do you hate him so much? Like, what has he done? Oh, his personality sucks. Orange man bad. Personality. Oh, his ego. Oh, his mean tweets. Whatever. It's always just some sort of like superficial bullshit. But he couldn't tell you a single Trump policy. I'm sure he couldn't even tell you a Biden policy he liked, because there aren't any. Because they're not, none of the current administration's policies are really helping anyone in the U.S. It helps a lot of the corporations, and so digital IDs are still okay with Cardano. Ahem, maybe that's a problem. You know what? I don't really have a problem with digital IDs, quite frankly. I think digital IDs. Honestly, I think midnight more than Cardano is basically designed more in line with like a digital ID format, because I think at some point, if midnight really takes on or takes off, I can see there being an API system for businesses. And I can see a lot of people's data being stored in some sort of like encrypted database utilizing midnight, and then you have your ID. And your ID, maybe if you go into a bar, they'll have a special reader, and it'll say, you'll scan something, and it'll go through, and then your digital ID will pop up and say, yes, you're of legal age, you're at least 18, or you're at least 21, and it won't give your address, your social security number, whatever the hell people have on their IDs. It'll just say you're of age to get in this bar. Or if you're trying to vote, you can have something, you get scanned when you walk in. Yes, I am a legal citizen of this country. This is my name. I am, of legal voting age, stuff like that, maybe there's something that, you have because all of our medical data, it's all over the place already. Like, none of the information about us is secure anywhere. Let's be real about it. But if we were to start migrating everything and transitioning it all outside of centralized control and centralized storage into a decentralized system that is accessible with our permission based off of what we're using it for, I think that's a good thing. That's it. I've said this in the past, back when dial-up internet was a thing, where you had to like sit there, dial up your ISP, and you wait for it to connect, and ding, 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 all that shit. I actually came up with an idea for a universal ID back then. I was a teenager, and because I thought it was disgusting the way people could just basically pretend to be anyone on the internet. And a lot of like predators, a lot of that kind of stuff was happening. And I'm like, there needs to be a way to stop this from going on. And I thought, if everybody had a digital ID at the time, I thought it would be something that would be enforced through the local internet service providers. Like, when you sign up for service, you have to prove who you are, and then you're assigned some form of digital ID that can be accessible by authorities or people on the back end to basically say who you are, to basically just stop a lot of the cancerous shit that was going on the internet, and still does to this day. Let's be real. I'm not against digital IDs. We already have digital IDs. We just don't have a means of utilizing them in an easy way online. So yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and call this. I I I need to eat something. I need to take a break. Listen, I definitely um it saddens me that I even have to do a video like this. But we really have to figure out a way to unify and to understand and appreciate and respect each other's differences and figure out a way to not be so toxic against opposing perspectives just because it might put a hole or two in your belief system. You know, if it's that easy, if it's so easy to put holes in your belief system, it's probably your belief system or the narrative you subscribe to that's at fault. And I hate to say that, but if your entire belief structure is bent around like your emotional triggers or things of that nature, but there's no real merit, um, then you got to look again, folks. I'm sorry. You have to do better, because the world at hand is much bigger. It's even much bigger than just, you know, I've seen people like I'm a one topic voter. Like, you know, if this person supports crypto, I support them. You know, if that person supported crypto, but put everything else that you know, oh yeah, I'm going to be all about Bitcoin and blockchain, but I'm going to increase taxes 50%. I'm going to set up an unrealized capital gains tax on everything we touch. And you know, and they're basically ruining everything else. I'm sorry, that person's got to go. Like, there's no, you know, I am for fair and balanced. I'm for benefiting everyone. You know, when it comes to a lot of these trigger points, you know, that people love, like gun rights and abortion and this and that, you know, I'm kind of down the middle. You know, I believe everybody should absolutely be able to own firearms to protect themselves, their families, their land, you know, but I don't think anybody should, I don't think anybody crazy should be able to get access to one. You know, I think that I know that there's some of this already. Like, you know, if you go out and you buy a gun, you have to go through a certain course to learn how to use it, handle it, and things, and that's good. And yeah, I guess you go through some background checks, but I don't know, like, how are some of these people able to access them? You know, quite frankly, well, that wouldn't work. I mean, if there was a way to do it, like we've seen in movies where, you know, like maybe an officer, you know, they have a gun, but that gun will only fire with their fingerprint on the trigger. um that would be a technology I think would be really, really handy, quite frankly, where only the registered owner of the gun is able to fire it. That way you don't have stolen weapons out there. You know, I mean, all that stuff is coming. Like, that's not that's going to be that's going to happen in the future. Because I don't believe this country is ever going to truly get rid of firearms. I just don't. I think there'd be a revolt in major, major numbers. Um, but I do see technology taking us to a place where, you know, if you buy a gun, that gun only works for you, and anything that happens with that gun is going to be, it's going to be automatically attributed to you. And then it's going to be a matter of how long it takes to get rid of all of the old firearms in favor of the new ones that, you know, maybe it's attached to some form of decentralized digital ID that you know, you have permissions to. You know, I don't know, like abortion. I think if, you know, if you're a victim of something dramatic, I think you should have the right within a certain time frame to resolve that. You know, I don't feel that people, I don't feel that careless people that wait like, you know, 8 months to decide what they're going to do should have the choice at that point, because it's beyond just a my body, my choice at that point. It's a, you know, I'm lazy. I got knocked up because I was doing some shit, and I went back and forth on something that was a really dramatic issue, and I waited way too long. And now there's like a full blown human body inside me. And it's just like, I just don't agree with being able to take care of it at that point. You know, if something dramatic happens, if you're a victim of something violent, you're not going to sit around for months on end trying to decide what you should do. I just don't see that being the case. I could be wrong. I've never been in that situation. So, you know, I believe that's a matter for like professionals to ultimately decide on a state level. I don't think it should be mandated in any one direction, because I think that, you know, by allowing the states to decide what's good, what's not, it the same way everybody has a different perspective on life. You know, we're all grown by, we were all raised with different means in different areas, different neighborhoods. You know, I believe that climate and, you know, decisions that are made for a state like Florida may very well be different for a state like Alaska, right? Like it's like the entire world, as those individuals know it from state to state, are dramatically different. The circumstances are dramatically different. People that grow up their entire lives in California are obviously going to be very different from ones that grow up in, you know, Ohio, you know. And so I think all of those factors should come into play on a state level, based on state resources and state culture and all of those things. So, you know, I believe that there's a way to work through any discourse in a mutually beneficial way that can ultimately help those that need the help, while not allowing people to really game the system or abuse the system in their favor all the time. So anyway, shit. All right. I love you guys, regardless of where you're at politically. But it's time to open our eyes, and it's time to start seeing things for what they are. Stop looking at everything as a conspiracy theory just because the people that want to control our thoughts tell us it is. There's so much more going on behind the scenes that you and I don't know about. And generally what we are able to see easily is probably some form of bullshit. And you have to look deeper. You know, they always say today's conspiracy theory is only separated by 6 months from being truth. You know, I've seen time and time again over 46 years how true that really is. So it is what it is, folks. But it's time for change. Trump 2024. Crow your coins. I'll see you soon.